This episode's guest is Robert Barnett, certified hypnotherapist, performance coach, and founder of High Performance Hypnotherapy. All right, Robert. Well, thank you for coming on today.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Robert, is it Barnett?
Barnett.
Is that Italian
Barnett.
or French?
It's actually English, Irish.
Oh, okay. Same. I think mostly my heritage, I think, is like English, Irish. Last name Moss. I don't really know where that. I guess it's like Scottish. I don't know where that comes from, but. So first, I just want to start out learning about you. So you hypnotherapist,
Yep.
Is that correct? And then you also have like an MBA as well?
Yeah, so I didn't start, out of college, I didn't start right into hypnotherapy professionally. So I kind of had a very, very windy road through more traditional corporate stuff, right?
Interesting.
CPG, so everything from marketing, sales, trademarking, strategy, sales finance.
CPG, what does that stand for?
Consumer packaged goods, consumer product goods. So it's stuff, over the counter things at the store. Everything that you buy, all the brands you recognize at Walmart, Target, CVS.
Interesting.
All that stuff.
So what brought you from CPG stuff into hypnotherapy?
Honestly, every time I had the opportunity, I've been interested in hypnosis since I was a freshman in high school, basically, and have been doing it since then.
What got you into it in your freshman year?
A stage hypnotist came to campus, and I just called BS immediately. I was like, this is ridiculous,
The non-believer.
Yeah, of course. And then, but like one of my buddies came off stage, and I was like, come on, that's not real, is it? And he's like, that was real, that was legit. Man. And so I set out to figure it out. Went on my campus. Obviously, I couldn't get any books on hypnosis. So school library, it was books on literally psychology, clinical psychology, Eastern religion, like anything that was mind related. I started grabbing, and then got home on a break, got to a bookstore, got a book on hypnosis, went back to the dorms, started hypnotizing my dorm mates.
What the heck?
And
Did it work on your dorm mates?
Yes. Yeah.
What did they think about it?
So it was great. It was a blast. We I did, even back then, we helped with sports, we helped with academics. So even then I was kind of working on this stuff and trying to understand what some of the limits were, but then we messed around with it. Anything you possibly imagine doing, I've done it in multiple continents. It just,
oh my gosh.
Because I've been doing it for so long.
That's super interesting.
Yeah. So,
oh my word.
Yeah. So I was always looking for a way to do it professionally, and to kind of get into it, but it's one of these things where it's not really regulated at all. So you have a bunch of people. The vast majority do not come from sort of a scientific end of the spectrum. Yeah, and so the reason a lot of stigmas, it kind of has a lot of stigmas associated with it, and kind of it's grouped in with like the healing rocks and Reiki and like that, is because that's where a lot of the practitioners lie, right?
A lot of guru, yeah.
So that was a problem when I was trying to get actual legitimate certification, because I had been doing it since I was 13 years old. So I actually knew more about it than the instructors. So I ended up never finding a legit course until like many years later. So
wow, because you're actually certified now, certified.
Yeah, but it's one of those things. Again, you could get I'm certified. I'm licensed in Connecticut. Connecticut actually requires a license, but it's really just not. It's just not regulated. You can get a certification probably this weekend if you really wanted to.
Do you think that's bad that it's not regulated?
Yeah, it's very bad. Yeah, yeah, it's not. It's not good. It's not good.
What are the consequences? Because I saw this thing the other day actually, and I think it's something that happened a long time ago. You probably heard about this, the principal with the 3 kids ended up dying, and apparently there was the reason it kind of resurfaced a little bit is because there was a documentary that just got released I think a few days ago about it. Is that real? Can people?
So the bottom line, as you well know, your mind in general, your subconscious exists to protect you. Period. Mm-hmm. Right. So I've had so many unique, interesting experiences with hypnosis, and I've seen that subconscious hop in and protect, right? So, so I don't think it's the case where he not that he did this, right? He didn't intentionally cause them, to do any self-harm. Is it possible that a scenario could be created or in their minds or the situation amplified in such a way that they felt more severe about it? Yeah, but that's true of any conversation you have with anybody, right?
That's true, right?
So I don't know. I'd have to be more intimately familiar with the case to kind of go through. But I've
dissect
never.
it.
Yeah, in my experience, just two brief examples. One person I hypnotized, it was my sophomore year in high school. He had previously been hypnotized when he was at the time he was a junior. He had been hypnotized when he was at like a summer camp when he was like, I don't know, 7 or something, right?
Oh wow.
By the counselors or something, like, and they messed with him. So he
Really?
literally when I went to hypnotize this kid, I was a kid too at the time. I went to hypnotize him. He would get to a certain depth of hypnosis and he would stop. And he literally saw a wall in his mind that disallowed him from actually going any deeper because the way he interpreted, his mind interpreted that being threatening to be able to go to that depth, right?
That's fascinating.
Yeah, so that was one. And another kid that I used to always put in a post-hypnotic suggestion so I could trigger hypnosis again.
Oh, okay.
So I'd just say a word and they'd go back under. So useful for a lot of reasons.
For entertainment purposes.
Yeah,
maybe.
I mean, yeah. Like I said, I did teach speed reading, study skills, but we messed around a lot too. And only once did somebody fall out of their chair, like, unintentionally.
That's insane.
But this other kid I hypnotized, he would literally, when I went to use that word again, he would go under hypnosis and then wake up within 2 or 3 seconds because he literally had a sensation in his mind, saw me running toward him and shoving him off a cliff.
Wow. There you go.
Like, yeah. So somehow he equated, this lack of control thing. So, but again, his mind instantly woke him up, right? So in my experience, I've seen so many ways where the opposite, like your subconscious steps in to the extent possible, protects you, right?
Right. That's interesting, that idea of like your subconscious protecting you, because I think there's so much nowadays of like your subconscious is what it's against you, right? Like it's like your childhood trauma, that's what sits in your subconscious. Like what would you say to that?
Well, that's the problem, right? So all of our minds are subconscious. All of our programs are for good, right? So that's not a philosophical statement. Not like good versus evil, but when the program was created, it was created with a positive purpose for you, a survival purpose.
Do you think that has like a statement about like spirituality, like about like maybe God, for example?
I think again, I've seen so many intersections of those paths. I personally, I'm open-minded about everything, right? But I definitely start in the sort of the foundation of science. Everything's neuroscience, psychology, because then I can flex it and work with spirituality, right? We can customize the tool and make it, affirmation or gratitudes could easily become prayer.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. And so, so I think, there's a lot of places that are close in, law of attraction, for example, as far as I know, there's no scientific evidence of that, but the inverse there is, right? So meaning that things that are unknown to us create anxiety, fear. There's actually an error / fear response in the brain when we're basically exposed to unknowns, change. And so, that's where you talk about traumas, existing childhood traumas. Well, what is it trying to do? It's trying to protect you from similar situations.
Right.
The problem is those programs are old, right? So the subconscious programs get in there and they stay.
Right. It's very primitive, right? Where
absolutely, yeah.
It's very, it tries to protect you at all costs, even if it means you're going to be super anxious all the time or depressed or, right? It's not really a respecter of those things.
Yeah, well, I mean, through my work, what I determined, or my theory, my belief really is anxiety is just a self-defense mechanism, right? Your mind is driving a wedge between what once caused you a physiologic response that, you would have been likened to being physically threatened, like you're going to get eaten by a tiger or something, right? So we haven't changed that much since back when we were kid boys and girls, you know what I mean? So so it's one of these things where that's where your mind doesn't want you going back to situations that caused a response that was threatening. Yeah.
And when you think about it, I guess it's like one of those things where we've lived so much longer under the the umbrella of survival than we have under like comfort. Like we only know comfort, you know, at least the majority, right? Hopefully. But we're still so wired for that survival, which is quite interesting as well.
Yeah, it's like, you know, it's that old pyramid, that Maslow's hierarchy, right?
Yes.
And we are so far up that, thankfully. But as a result, we're all walking around in this sort of hyper vigilant state unnecessarily, where, you know, a 5-minute line at a fast food restaurant, or, you know, like that stresses us out. Like that's anxiety. My Wi-Fi on the plane is out, you know?
Yeah.
Like those are our big stressors in life. It's
just the minuscule things.
Yeah. You know, and that's obviously the problem, right? That's why people are in such a state of high anxiety.
Yeah. It's quite sad, actually, like how many people struggle with it. And it's chronic for many people too. Like imagining how much they're impeding themselves from with that anxiety. Yeah. Another point that I wanted to talk to you about or ask you about is hypnotherapy compared to meditation. Mm-hmm. How similar are they? How different are they?
Yeah, well, I mean, the first thing I'd say is, so basically the way I do things, I don't just rely on hypnosis. So I use every other methodology that's out there, right? So commonly it's a blend of hypnosis and cognitive behavioral therapy. And usually those are what I'm blending the most.
So like CBT with like, as far as like cognitive behavioral therapy, as far as like the skills that it brings and all those things mixed with the...
Exactly. So cognitive skills, and then methodology, like desensitization, exposure, treatment, like sort of level up methodology, where I give people tools and basically have them perform exercises during the course of a week to try to shift the neural pathways, change the associations. Wow. On top of the hypnosis. And then the hypnosis works to accelerate some of those tools that would otherwise just be cognitive. It's like you can kind of get reps in beforehand, you know, before you actually, you know, see the spider in life, you could visualize sort of a version of that experience, right?
So practicing, that exposure therapy within the meditation or the hypnotherapy.
Exactly, with tools. So but then in terms of differentiating meditation from hypnosis, what most people will say that have done a lot of meditation that I then work with, they'll say it feels like a deeper meditation,
deeper state of
meditation.
I guess of trance, I guess you might call it.
Yeah, and again, it's hard. There aren't a lot of great studies on sort of the state of mind and how it mirrors or mimics sleep, or how it mirrors or mimics meditation, but there are similarities across all of those, basically. So it's something that's similar to meditation. I'd say the big difference is, and everybody does it differently. Well, that's not true. A lot of people just kind of do it out of a book, but like in terms of the core or the essence of how they sort of trigger hypnosis or how they induce hypnosis, there's certain methodologies, but the primary difference with the way I do it is I basically don't require you to pay heavy focus on anything. We're like meditation, a lot of times, like you think like transcendental meditation, or you're being asked to actually focus on a mantra or a symbol, or to, you know, think about almost like disallowing thought or letting thought flow, and getting back to like a mantra or something. You know, it requires a focus, and I'm the opposite the way I do it. So basically, take a nap and let your mind kind of do whatever it wants to do.
Are you serious? Because that's super interesting, because from what I know about hypnotherapy, I thought it was like super, like you had to be focused on one thing, because if not, then your mind's too almost cluttered to go into a state of trance. Like,
so it's honestly kind of the opposite. So when our minds are cluttered, let's say, right, that's most commonly, again in my experience, most commonly when your prefrontal cortex kind of takes a nap. It gets overwhelmed, and that's when, because think about it again, survival. So when you're carrying too much burden, you got too many things, too many tabs open, too many things going on, either kind of holistically in your life, like this test, that test, this thing at school, whatever, you got too many things, or a moment, like a single moment that's super highly stressful. Well, in that moment, your mind basically shifts from you being rational, cognitive, to subconscious, because you're back into that reactive state. So in my experience, what I find is people who are kind of overthinking, have too many tabs open, they're most likely already near a state of trance or in a state of trance. It's kind of like when you're sitting. I work broadly, but I focus on working with professionals and athletes largely.
Oh wow,
students. And so with athletes, what you'll see, especially young athletes, or even really at any level this can happen, you'll see them, and all of a sudden it's as though they stop playing. Right? They like watching,
hit a wall,
like watching the game. Yeah, like watching the game. And you've done it like in class, like you're sitting there, you look out the window, and all of a sudden, like the professor calls on you, and you're, like 5 minutes have passed. You're like, I have no idea where I was just now.
Well, especially with ADHD nowadays, right? Like that's huge.
Yeah. So again, I think a lot of times it's that overthinking, processing too much, that then the mind kind of goes into almost like a protect mode, and then it's very similar to trance, very similar to hypnosis.
Interesting. So it's almost like burning the candle at both ends. Like you can get into it maybe by a state of relaxation, but also even by a state of like overstimulation. Is that kind of what I'm understanding?
Yes.
In a sense?
And if you think about it, that's what a stage hypnotist is often using. They're using a very fast methodology, they term it rapid induction, but like you'll see guys sometimes on TikTok, or they'll do it at the bars, and right? And they're using very rapid techniques that are not about relaxation at all. They're basically confusion techniques.
That's true, because like, I was watching this video the other day, and it was in like Las Vegas, of course, and he was just having him stare at his hand and like saying words like super rapidly, like almost like over loading his mind in a sense.
Yeah.
Oh, that's super interesting. So I'm curious how you use this with professionals. We'll talk more about athletes later, but with professionals, how are you using this?
So it comes up all different ways. So when I set out to do this professionally, I also started doing business consulting. So I do business consulting, and I do this, and I do. So where the hypnosis comes in is it can either be sort of an element of executive coaching, right? So in other words, a leader on the team either already has guidance from HR, from their manager, things that they need to do better. But just like the rest of us, there are certain things they're not doing that they should be doing, or certain things they are doing that they shouldn't be doing, but they can't get themselves to engage, right? The leader is always late turning in the report, or whatever it might be, right? Or is having issues with members of the team. And so where I work in that, if I'm aware of what the situation is, I basically take all that in, try to get understanding of what the barriers are, what the challenges have been. And then both from a sort of executive coaching standpoint, which is more pragmatic, like these are the tools and the skills and things we need to work on.
Yeah.
So basically I create that first. This is what we need to improve, but then we provide the subconscious tools so that they can actually improve those things. Right. So the one that comes up most commonly is public speaking. With my executives, that comes up a lot. So if it isn't this general, I need more motivation, I need better leadership, if it isn't that version, or work-life balance, it's presentation anxiety.
I've heard that's like one of the highest fears even is public speaking. Like some people would rather like do a lot of things except for public speaking, which I mean, I get the anxiety, right? It's a lot of the social anxiety, I think, piece of it as well.
Yeah, it's all closely related, right? And so that's really how we use it, and everything is. So there's a coaching element to all those things, because what I found, again, doing the hypnosis for so long, the hypnosis has a half-life to it. It wears off.
See, that's interesting, because I always thought like the effects were like long term.
So the reason I layer in all these other tools is so they are long term.
Oh, okay.
But by itself, if it was just in a bubble, and I'll give you an example in a second. But if like I put a post-hypnotic suggestion in, and it just was left alone, it would just wear off. And it depends on the person how long it lasts. So that's all the stuff I learned kind of goofing off with the words, right? So they'd come back and I'd say the word, and I could see them kind of like fighting it, and like, that was a 2-week break versus a 1-week break. You know what I mean? Like, right. And so I saw that depending upon the person, the length, it sort of varied depending upon the depth that person went to. And so the hypnosis in a bubble, like something like that means nothing, right? It's just a word, just a suggestion I made. That suggestion wears off. What can happen, like take something like smoking. People use hypnosis to quit smoking, right? What can happen is it's very rare that smoking is just a habit. If it's a habit, the hypnosis works very well. Even without getting big and even without getting really creative with the approach and kind of getting to know people and creating tools and all that, even just hypnosis will work very well. But most people, it's not just a habit. It's very rare that it's a habit, right? It's got all these elements of secondary gain, all these reward elements. They're coping, exactly. So, so the problem is you use hypnosis to quit. You quit for a day, but now you run into Sally. And every time you see Sally, you have a coffee and a cigarette. She's like, hey, you want to go to Starbucks? And you're like, right there, you slide right back into smoking again. Or something stressful occurs in your life and you slide right back in again. Now, could you quit smoking with hypnosis and then go live on an island by yourself where everything, the chemicals, obviously, most studies will say the chemical addiction's gone like 72 hours, give or take, right? But so obviously you're past the chemical addiction, but can you find other things in your life on that deserted island that are going to rebalance kind of your dopamine, endorphin,
right?
The alternative, exactly. So you no longer need smoking. You got a coconut that you drew a face on and you talk to, right? So now you do that instead of smoking, and now you have a mechanism by which your neural pathways permanently remain shifted.
Interesting.
And so that could happen, right? You could have an easy life for 6 months after quitting where nothing triggers you, and now it's permanent, right?
Wow. So that's like fascinating because, again, I don't know where I'm getting my resource. It must be like Wikipedia or something, because I heard that studies were saying that with smoking use, maybe it was the people they were pulling for the study, they said it had like a 99% success rate with people quitting smoking, for like, they could make them quit for like at least 90 days, which I thought was really impressive. But it sounds like that might not have been your experience.
Yeah, I mean, again, so they're the same people that get on the stage for the shows will have, and that's probably, again, not great research on some of these things, but probably like 5 to 10%, maybe closer to 5% of people are going to respond like you see those people on stage. So super highly suggestible, super highly, basically hypnotizable, right? That person is going to benefit even more if the process is just hypnosis. So they can go in and quit smoking maybe permanently.
Wow.
Right.
Oh my word.
One session, potentially.
And so people can be more suggestible, I guess, is that the term?
Yeah. I mean, just again, I think just take it out of the context of even hypnosis or what we're talking about. Like some people, you go to a car dealership, you sit with a car salesman, and some people are like, well, this guy's full of crap, and they get up and leave. And other people are like, really? I'm a good negotiator. That's the best deal you've ever given. Oh yeah. And you know what I mean? Honestly, they're just people. And to be fair, your suggestibility varies too, right? It's like, so, depending upon what matters to you, for example, take like sports, right? You might love a sports team or a certain game. You go to the game and you're feeling for the characters. You're excited. You're feeling for the teammates. Right? But your girlfriend or the buddy that came with you has no interest in the sport and just wants another beer, right? Like there's no connection to any of it. There's no suggestion, right? So in that scenario, because of your past experiences, you're more affected, more suggestible, more easily influenced by that experience. And he's just like, nothing.
Couldn't care less,
I'm not taking my shirt off and putting letters on my desk.
Yes, it seems bizarre.
Yeah, you guys are strange as hell. Yeah. So suggestibility, it varies too, but basically, a small percentage of people, for whatever reason, are just more highly suggestible, and part of it too is the desire to want to go on stage, and you get people. And as a result, too, you get, the guy might pull up 10 or 12 people and send 5 or 6 back to their chairs.
Because they're not as suggestible.
They're
probably.
not. Yeah, he thinks they're faking it or not responding the right way, and they don't always make the right choice. Sometimes I send people back, and people are falling over in their chairs in the audience because they picked somebody that was just responding differently.
Oh my gosh!
Right, which can happen.
But
yeah. So that's that's how it can work. So it can work where if you're really highly suggestible, if the hypnosis works very well with you, it's going to last a lot longer. And because it lasts a lot longer, you could easily go 90 days. I mean, it could be permanent. Oh, wow. It could be permanent. This could sound ridiculous, but one of my friends in college has to quit smoking. Now, again, this is before I was studying it professionally.
So you hypnotized
right?
Your roommate.
Yeah, I was a freshman in college at the time, and it was a buddy of mine. They got in high school together. He wanted to quit smoking, and my brilliant idea. I thought it'd be fun too. Anytime he touches a cigarette, it turns into a worm. Right? So this is what he was dealing with, right? So anytime he tried to smoke, he would just freak out and
he's just holding a worm.
Yeah. And he had to drop the cigarettes. So he goes through that for like 2 days.
Oh my god!
And he's kind of pissed at me because I didn't change his desire to smoke at all. I didn't do this the right way at all, right? So he's pissed. He's like,
because he still wants it, right?
I still want. He still wants the cigarettes. So it's a couple of days later. We go out to eat, and obviously this is when smoking was still allowed in food areas. We're in like the food court, and I see him take out a pack of cigarettes. He picks up the ashtray. He knocks the cigarette into the ashtray, and then he literally lights it and smokes it from the ashtray.
Just like inhaling it?
Yeah, because if he doesn't touch the cigarette, it doesn't turn into a worm. So he was literally able to just smoke it out of the ashtray.
Oh
without touching the cigarette.
This is unreal. I can't.
So that's how extreme.
Oh, wow.
For people who are more suggestible, more highly hypnotizable, the response can be really, really extreme to it.
That is so interesting.
The things you can do with it, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like fascinating. So could you tell if somebody, like just looking at people walking by, could you see if they're more suggestible, or is that a little too?
To some extent, right?
Yeah.
To some extent, you can see it to some extent. The way they interact with other people, the reality too, which is good. It's good and bad. Again, I found people who are more anxious people tend to be more hypnotizable people.
Interesting.
Yeah.
You'd think it'd be people that were like maybe more like could relax easier. Like,
I think what's going on is the way that we define stress is kind of ill-defined, and anxiety. People are always talking about looking for root cause and like understanding and childhood traumas, and let's work through that, and in my experience, it is more like what I described before. It's kind of like we got all these tabs open in our minds, and the more tabs we have open, the more likely our mind's gonna go to like a blue screen, and we're just gonna run on cruise control. The more that your subconscious,
like doom scrolling almost, like just losing yourself.
You're getting into that, that almost that fight or flight kind of mechanism, right? The more that and so my one of my theories is what's going on is, I would say spiritual people might call these people like empaths, right? Have you heard that term before? So, like people who are more sensitive, let's call it, in the sense that they sense energies and emotions. Exactly, right. Yeah. And so you don't have to think about it spiritually, but like rationally, some people are more aware, more sensitive. They process more stuff than other people.
Yeah. Right. And I've heard this where like introverts are actually more socially aware than extroverts, because extroverts are just like, whatever, I don't care what these people think about me. Introverts are like, what's that person thinking? Well, how is this person going to respond to what I say?
Yeah.
Very, very provoking.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So that's kind of one of my theories in working with all the people I worked with is when somebody is more highly sensitive, sometimes I say it's like, you get a better Wi-Fi reception, Well, as a result, you're walking through the same cafeteria, you're walking through the same mall, but that person's brain is processing so much more crap.
Right. And I wonder what that is. Like, how does that come to be almost in a sense?
Yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting question. I think some of it's programming, right? So in other words, if you are, and when I say programming, I'm thinking, you know, Freudian type, not necessarily the mom stuff, but
Yeah.
the mirroring, right? That stuff makes sense. You're born into the world. You have a clean slate outside of whatever DNA and genetics, but in terms of the programs that keep you alive, there's nothing there, right? You got to look to your caregiver to say, how do I exist? How do I cross the street? How do I eat this food? How do I, right? So that in essence, that aspect of, sort of programming, I think makes a lot of sense rationally to me, right?
Yeah.
And so if that's the case, right, and your dad has a fear of heights or has claustrophobia or whatever, and is now modeling a behavior that you should be afraid of certain things.
It's a
right?
lot of that modeling.
Right.
Right.
Right. And so like if that's the behavior that you're observing and it's in a person that he taught you how to look both ways, he taught you how to buckle your seatbelt and wear a helmet when you ride your bicycle, and so you're getting all these survival messages and programs, and now you see one more, right? So it could be, some combination of those things, right? Naturally, if you take like a more, I guess, more objective sense or idea, hearing, right? Two people hear at different levels. Right. Different ability to hear. So we have different abilities to sense and to process too.
That's true, right? And even like, I don't know if this is true, but apparently women see more of the color spectrum. I don't know how like accurate that is, but different.
Yeah, and the hearing shifts even as we get older, right? Our ability to hear high pitches goes away.
Yeah, so it's quite fascinating.
Yeah, so I think it's a combination. What programs are you developing as you're growing up? Do they make you more vigilant, right? Do they make you look for the bear around the corner every time you pass a corner, or are the programs more chill than that? Right. So I think that's part of it, and then the other part of it is just, hey, do I hear better? Do I see better? Am I just more observant because I have the faculties to be? And that combination probably creates the perfect storm, right?
Yeah, no, it's true. I mean, it seems to come back to this idea of survival, right? At the end of the day, with the parents. And, you rely on them, obviously, for especially the first little bit that you're born, right? For your absolute survival. And then it becomes kind of a habit later on as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Very interesting. Well, I want to talk with the little bit that we have left about your, you said you do like executive coaching as well. Like, how do you work that into your schedule? Yeah.
So, I mean, basically the three primary areas, I end up working with everything you could imagine, especially because people get, honestly, unfortunately, in the field broadly, people are getting turned away from help they need, either because people don't want to work on certain conditions or because they just don't know what to do with people. So people are coming to me, and I'm literally hearing people say, like, they're telling me I can't be helped. They're telling me, like, it's kind of bad.
Oh yeah.
So I end up working with everybody. Like I let them know this is what I specialize in, but if they're not getting success somewhere else, so I end up doing everything. But my focus is on performance, right? Mm-hmm. So my focus is academics, executive, and athletics. So for executive coaching, again, usually they'll come to me and it'll be some question of either work-life balance, they're having issues with motivation, and then I'd say they're the two biggest ones I mentioned. Presentation anxiety, which you mentioned social anxiety, for example. They're all very closely related. They're all variations of some version of fear of judgment. Right. Some version of that.
Like testing anxiety, even for like academics.
Yeah, they're all variations of that, right? And I mean, at the end of the day, in my experience, anxiety is just the habit of focusing on, or is generated from the habit of focusing on things we can't control, right? It's so often the past and projecting future negative what ifs off the past, right? So it's all variations of that, but that's what executives will come to me with. And the other big one is, believe it or not, it's traveling. So fear of flying or fear of driving.
There's a lot of people that are scared of flying. People that like seem like pretty mellow people, but for some reason with flying, it just it's super anxiety provoking for them.
Yeah, and it's and a lot of times people who have to do it, my executives, my business owners, are having issues with it, and it's a part of what they absolutely need to do. So I've had salespeople, like regional salespeople, or heads of regions that had a phobia of driving. It's like obviously that doesn't work very well,
right? Especially if you're trying to do business.
Struggle. Yeah, it's like the music teacher I worked with who had a phobia of basically public speaking. Public performing. She's a music teacher.
Oh wow!
So yeah,
like, that'd be hard.
That was a struggle for her until we met. So that's the kind of stuff. You know, a lot of times too is I'll end up working with an athlete, and once they kind of get to know my style and my methods and have good success, I end up working with their sibling or the dad who's the executive. Commonly, I end up working with like whole families.
Oh wow, yeah.
Because they'll go, oh wait, you and I'm not bound by HIPAA or any. I have, of course, I maintain confidentiality and I everything, but everything's really self-regulated.
Right. You couldn't bill insurance though, right? Or like
not directly.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Everyone's plans are different. So some plans allow for out of network. Some plans allow for flex spending. But basically, I can't bill direct.
Oh yeah. Would you recommend hypnotherapy for everybody? Do you think everybody could benefit from it?
Yeah, and again, I think if we broaden it to the way that I'm doing it, combining a whole bunch of methods, I think there isn't. Look, the fundamentally way to think about it is, if you want to change any habit at all, hypnotherapy can help. Right. And so, and the thing is, habits, people think about like behavioral habits, smoking, drinking, eating too many donuts, right?
Yeah.
Like people think about the behavior, but what precedes the behavior are the thoughts and the emotions. And the thoughts and the emotions change your life, right? Like your perception is your reality. That's not profound. That's scientifically true, right? Your perception is absolutely shapes your reality. So when you realize that your perception is just a foundation of habits, that's really what it is. You're just habitually responding to the same or various variations of the same situation over and over again.
Right.
Like that's what life is. You moving through scenarios, your brain goes, that's kind of like this scenario. This is how you're supposed to feel. And it brings up good, bad, all the programs.
Right.
Right. And so basically what you start to realize is, wait a minute, there's no such thing as a stressful experience. There's no such thing, in some ways, sadly, no such thing as a happy experience.
Right.
What it is it's an experience. They're just things we're observing.
It's how you experience it.
Exactly, right? So it's your internal experience that's actually independent. So when you realize that, you're like, I can change how I feel about anything.
Which is quite interesting when you think about like the pursuit of truth, right? Because it's like there's so many, like, this is your truth, this is my truth, and I think we've gotten to a place in society where it's just like everybody has their truth and we're just going to leave it that way. Which is, I don't know if that's the greatest thing, but
no, it's an absurd statement. Right? But that's what happens.
Yeah.
And our brains are so determined to protect our programs that's how you get this concept of my truth.
Yes.
Right? It's because your brain goes, oh, this is our truth. That it doesn't matter what you say, that's more true. My truth is mine. Right? So
it's a level of surrender, I think. Like it's like I can't figure out what's truth, so I'm just going to live by my truth, or I can't understand your truth, so I'm just going to keep to mine. But I think, like you said at the beginning, like keeping an open mind, I think is valuable for everybody, right?
Yeah, I mean, I find all of it super interesting, right? There's nothing. I mean, the things I work with, it's everything from ED to the things you wouldn't even think of. I worked with like Tourette syndrome, which is typically considered neurological entirely in nature, and nonetheless dramatic improvement in tics and responses and mimicking. And
wow.
I'm working with a gentleman now who can't. Well, until we started working together, couldn't eat a lot of food. Couldn't eat the food, so couldn't eat chicken Couldn't eat.
Like because of allergies or
No,
like
he just would start to
aversion?
respond. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. He just couldn't do it. He would get sick. Just wasn't going to happen. And so all these interesting things come up, but it's like, I've yet to find anything, and there's good reason for it. I've yet to find anything that it couldn't help.
Wow.
Because all we're doing is helping you basically take ownership of your thoughts and your emotions, right? You're hacking, you're hacking your mind. You're reverse engineering your mind. So we're putting new programs in place, leveraging the same mechanisms that the now defunct programs were originally put in place. We're just putting better programs in place.
In the subconscious, right? Which seems to be more long lasting than our fleeting conscious mind.
Yeah, it's faster and much longer lasting. Yeah, my athletes are, a lot of times my programs are anywhere between like 5 and 10 weeks.
Oh, okay.
Typically for my athletes, my executives, my students, and even like the second week, they're like major improvements quite often. I work with gymnasts lately, but it's that season, so cheerleading and gymnastics has been coming up a lot, and they'll get into the point where they just can't. They will not throw a certain. Usually, it's often going backwards. Like, will not throw a certain thing, right? They just freeze or they bail out. And literally, this was happening to one of my cheerleaders, and she was regressing in terms of skill set. We met one time, and she's in a program, so we'll meet a few more times. But even after meeting one time, and I hadn't even given her a lot of really good tools yet.
Yeah.
Which I kind of really stacked the deck. One time, and she's out there.
Just throwing it.
And she's like, just throwing it. And she's
I don't want to say throwing it back, but that might be a different sport.
I hope she's too young. Hopefully not doing that. But she's, and she's like, yep, I'm just not, just the negative stuff's not there anymore.
Yeah. That's incredible. So for people that would be interested in learning about, like just opportunities for this, how could they discover you? How could they find out about your services?
Yeah, so my website is High Performance Hypnotherapy.
Okay.
And I'm investing far too much in Google, so if you do a search in the area, more than likely you'll get a Google response. Don't click on the ones above the fold because they cost me money. But no, so you'll find me at High Performance Hypnotherapy, and the site basically is laid out in such a way where there's a blog that covers a bunch of stuff. If you're interested in kind of going through, the science of gratitudes, I've got some stuff in there on that, and just generally how we can help. And then there's different pages that talk to the most common issues and challenges, and so you can check it out. I think the one thing, I think the one takeaway is people get complacent, people get accepting. Right? Of situations, of experiences. I'm not a good public speaker. It's not my thing. I'm not, people just accept. I'm getting old, so I have to get fat, Just accept. And the one thing is don't accept, right? Take a step back and go, wait a minute. I'm responding this way. I'm letting these things happen. I'm experiencing it this way because of past programs.
Yeah, I think that's a good point because there is a lot of complacency and yeah, a lot of, I guess, excuses. I don't know if I want to put it that harshly, but it's
no, they are. They're just excuses.
Right. Excuses where it's I'm getting old. So it's because of this or that. And it's there does seem to be a need for more control over our own lives or autonomy.
Accountability.
Yeah, exactly. Accountability would be super helpful.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, in my experience, happiness, accountability, self-confidence, they are so closely related. So closely related. How do you develop self-confidence, self-trust, self-love without any accountability?
Right.
You walk around blaming the world for your failures, then how do you take responsibility for your success?
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Those are really closely related. So that's something that I often bring into the fold is coaching elements. So goal setting and structure to help kind of set that course.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too of learning about opposites, right? Like hearing about how it's difficult for somebody to be confident and still be depressed, right? Just like you're saying there, it's if you have those things, it's harder for you to fall into those ruts.
Yeah, no, again, I know you can, obviously you could give a diagnosis of anxiety or depression. I don't get hung up on any of that stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, because I feel like it ends up perpetuating excuses for not changing in so many times. And unfortunately, what happens, you get diagnosed with something, or your child or your girlfriend, whatever it does, that you open a book and you go, oh, and you start looking for the damn symptoms, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what happens? Confirmation bias.
Yep.
And you're like, oh, you know what I mean? So there's issues with it. However, what I've found, honestly, is anxiety and depression. Again, you can diagnose all you want, but to me, they're really rational responses. Like if you're stuck, anxiety is you're stuck in the present, basically, and you're focusing on things you can't control, or namely often the negative future outcomes that are inevitable, right? If I go outside, something bad's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
So what happens? You just sit still. You don't have any solutions. Nobody's offering really good solutions, right? So eventually you get depressed.
Right.
Like that's, to me, that's so rational.
It's
like,
obvious, right?
Right? If everywhere I step is going to be a pile of shit, no matter where I step, then I'm going to stand still. And eventually, if I stand still too long, my life is going to feel very, very, I feel like I'm in a cage. It's going to be very depressing.
Right. I think that's such a good point, because I think it definitely comes down to complacency, right? Like that's such a big thing nowadays of like, and maybe too much validation. That might be something wrong to say, but like,
well, you know what? The whole love yourself kind of thing. I think there's a balance there. It's love yourself and strive for better. You know, versus be overly accepting of where you are.
Yeah,
which allows or furthers that whole complacency.
Absolutely.
You know, which is, I'm all about, taking credit, the reason we have to hold ourselves accountable to things is so we can feel that sense of pride and accomplishment. And the accountability is important to establishing new and better habits, right? Because we want that endorphin, dopamine, positive chemical response when we do something. So we have to say we're going to do it first, hold ourselves accountable, and then do it. And then our brain goes, ding, hey, you did what you said you're going to do.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And so it just has to be there, right? In the absence of that, you do things, but they never become habitually driven because you're not closing the habit loop. You're not getting good programs in mind. You're just kind of showing up because society says you should, or doctor says you should work out, or and so the inverse is you get people that are just overly accepting of where they are. It's too hard to change, and you get all the self-defense mechanisms, fear of failure, fear of success, all the self-sabotage that comes in, and it's tough. It's tough being in the situation too, because you feel, people feel, people are afraid to set goals. Depressed, when you're in depression, the first thing I have to do with people, and again, I used to work in those areas more, but now kind of only the worst case scenarios because they're getting turned away elsewhere, not getting help, and so they'll come to me, and the first thing I have to do is get them to see possibility and get them to set some goals, because their mind and therefore their body's been living out these negative futures over and over and over and over again.
Right. That's a self-fulfilled prophecy part of it.
Yeah. Like that's all your mind is seeing, is everything that's going to go wrong in the future over and over and over again. And your body lives it. Like physiologically, when we visualize something, our body responds to that. Right. So the first thing you have to do is get them to see something positive out there.
Yeah.
That's
pretty awesome.
And that's that you can finally start to, then people are more willing to start to hold themselves accountable because it's worth it. It's worth the risk of failure when what's so good, on the other side is so clear and rewarding.
Yeah. You have to have a vision, or I guess it's almost like faith in a sense, where it's like you have to believe in something that's not necessarily right here in the moment, but it's a possibility.
Yeah. And that's, what's funny too is that gets lumped in, like you think about like manifestation, law of attraction, and that's all. So that idea of thinking about setting a goal that you can't accomplish, for example, right? That idea is thought of as like ridiculous. That's idealistic. And I'm not at all. I'm like, I'm optimistic, right? But I'm rationally optimistic.
That's a good way to put it.
Right? I think rationally optimistic. But the people will say, oh, that's ridiculous. Like, No. Like, think about any scientific endeavor, any great invention or solution. We didn't have any idea, right? We didn't have the tools to know how we were going to achieve the goal.
Right.
We just said, we're going to figure it out.
It's the vision, right?
Right. And we're going to keep trying light bulbs until one works. You know, we don't know yet how it's going to come together. We know there's deficiencies in our skill, our technology, we know, but we're going to set the goal of doing this thing anyway.
Right.
Right. That's the way science evolves. Right. So to then go like, yeah, but in my personal life, if I set a goal that I don't feel like I can accomplish, that's being idealistic and ridiculous. It's like, no. That's how it works. We have to figure out, where do you want to go, and then what I need to do to get there.
Yeah. I think it's a very good point because, and I think we're all thankful for those people that were able to have that vision, and maybe even something that wasn't even like you said, like maybe like the light bulb, something that's like something that we've never seen before, but there was a vision and they made it possible, and so like I think we're indebted in that way to people that do that. So yeah.
So we just got to do that for our own minds.
Absolutely.
Celebrate the moment, but then set your sights on that next opportunity, whatever that aspect of life is.
Right. Like setting your sight on the next
milestone.
Yeah, like the next milestone. Exactly. Yeah. Well, thanks again.
My pleasure.
For coming on. Is there anything else you want to any departing words that you'd like to to give?
No, I think the one thing I'd say, and we were talking about anxiety and where anxiety comes from, and I mentioned sort of my theory, my observation that it comes from the habit of focusing on things we can't control, right? Buddhists would call it monkey mind. So predominantly what that means is we're often dragging around, ruminating the past. Like, what did I say? What did I say to that girl? I can't believe, hey, she's like, have a great vacation. And you're like, oh yeah, you too. She's not going, those things we say, like, I hope you enjoy your coffee. Thanks, you too. Like, you know what I mean? And then you think about it. People ruminate. Be upset for hours over what they said.
Right. Although she probably didn't care that much.
Not at all. Right.
She wanted to go on a date with you,
but that's what we spend our time worrying about, And then maybe even fast forwarding to, I'm gonna get it right. The next time I talk to Sally when I pick up my coffee, I'm gonna say, you know what I mean? Like, we waste so much energy and we carry around the burden of all this noise, right?
Yeah.
Learn how to be more present. Be present. It's simple. It's not easy, but present is, in my opinion, that is the foundation for consistent happiness. Present. You really, when you can be engaged with the present, truly be in the moment, all the rest just falls by the wayside.
Right.
And honestly, not to sound woo-woo or philosophical, but think about it. Like, the only moment of influence that exists, you want to be happier, you want to be more successful, you want however you define that. The only moment that influences that is present.
Absolutely.
Right? And yet so few of us are actually engaged entirely in the present.
Man, I appreciate you bringing that up as a final point, because that's something that I've been thinking about a lot lately, is presence and how difficult it is.
It is.
It should be easier because you think we learn as humans, the most valuable thing for me for every aspect of my life is to be present. But that can be so difficult.
We've got too many windows open. Right? Too many apps open in the background.
Yeah.
But it's definitely, and I don't get it right all the time either, but there's moments, right? There's moments of clarity. It's like the Matrix, right? There's moments where you're like, all right, this is good.
Yeah. Love Matrix. Such a good movie. Such a good movie. Well, yeah, again, thank you for coming on.
My pleasure.
High performance hypnotherapy?
High performance hypnotherapy.
All right. Okay. Perfect. Well, thanks again. And yeah,
you're welcome.
High performance hypnotherapy. Please, if you're interested, reach out. And Robert Barnett.
Robert Barnett. Correct.
Thanks again.
Yeah, my pleasure.